I guess with that, we'll get rolling here. A couple minutes past, so I'll just hop into the introduction component, just so you guys know who we are. And we're an Edmonton-based company that does the mental health and mental performance and mental wellness, and then the full integration of everything together for a lot of teams up in the Edmonton area. Um, and then across Canada as well. So we work with Football Canada, Hockey Canada, various different hockey leagues. And then Dr. Mrazek, who's our, I guess, chief psychology officer, lead guy. He works with the Oilers, the Oil Kings, pretty much every collision sport internationally is on the board for the IIHF. A bunch of volleyball teams across Alberta, ski teams. So everything that we're going to go through is based in facts. There's a whole lot of clinically validated information and studies. This session today is going to be more of an introduction into tying in the components of mental health, mental wellness, and performance. So, in later sessions, we'll get into more of the tangible things you can really do to build
No,
those
Trevor, you
different.
need bad boys later.
There, sorry, I just muted you there. And then we'll tie into those different aspects in later sessions throughout the year. But this will be the intro one. We were supposed to do it like 3 weeks ago, but then your high school games just started coming back. So we delayed it till now. But then we'll also dive into different aspects of uh, physical performance, pain and injury management, nutrition, hydration, and all those things throughout the year to be dedicated directly to you guys and try and get you in peak form for when the end of the season comes for provs, nationals, whatever your end goal really is. That's what we're going to be building up to. I mean, each team has a different goal in mind. So we'll be there to help you set that up and figure out really what you're shooting for and then how to peak at that time with all the different aspects. Mental performance is one of those things that is definitely overlooked and is gaining more traction nowadays, but it's not practiced or utilized in ways that are out in the open public that much. So there's a lot of really easy low-hanging fruit situations where you guys can put in a very small amount of time on a daily basis to really build up and get to that kind of 1% better every day aspect. I'm sure everyone, especially at your guys' age, is doing different physical training, practicing quite a bit, going through all those aspects. So we don't want to leave behind the mental game to really help you make sure you're reaching your peak at those times. And just one component and aspect, I guess a caveat I'll say is that everyone wants that one thing to be told, hey, just do this and then you'll be great. Your mental game will be perfect. It's just not a realistic thing. There's not one thing out there that just flips that switch and turns it on for you. So it is a learning game. You have to learn about yourself. You have to have the self-awareness, develop those components, see what works for you, see what doesn't work for you, and then have good communication around it. Greg will talk about it later, but building those practices so your teammates know, your coaches know, your parents know, kind of what are the things that you need to do and you want to do to get focused, get in the zone, recover from errors, whatever that is. But it's really a game of figuring out, hey, let me do this, let's build this routine, let me try it, and I'll see how it works, and then good communication surrounding it. So, with that being said, I'll let Greg head into the bulk of the content here, and then at the end, I'll talk again. If anyone has any questions throughout, you can throw them in the chat, and then I'll interrupt Greg if it makes sense, or we'll hold it for the end when it comes, or you can just ask later because we'll have a question time as well. So, with that, Greg, you're up.
Sweet. Thanks, Cody. So, with all that, part of the fun stuff that I get to give back to is I was a Raven through my club career. I was part of the very first men's Ravens team. A few of you might have heard me kind of speak throughout the last couple of years. As well, in my first year at Nate, I got to play under Mr. Matthews himself. So that was a very fun experience and something that keeps me tied to you all. Um, so I'm really excited about this year and working with you all and helping you take your mental performance to the next level. But a lot of that really begins with that mental health and that well-being overall. You can have all the best strategies, tactics, ideas, how to approach a game. But if your mental health isn't where it needs to be or in a good spot, you're going to struggle in a lot of different areas. So we're going to just talk about, like I said today, a little bit about mental health for athletes, sports performance. So building your capacity to focus is mostly where we're going to focus. And then we'll do a brief little conversation about resilience. So some general just kind of ideas around training for your mental health or just training for mental performance. At the end of the day, at this stage of your volleyball careers, you're probably putting in many different hours. You're also putting in a lot of money, or your parents are putting in a lot of money, time, that type of thing. And so we're here to really try to help you get the most out of that time and money to make the best experience for yourself, no matter where it takes you, be it playing at the next level, playing professionally, or just heading to an adult league or recreational league. There's still many, many years of fun in there um, that can be had for everyone. So, a few kind of professional athletes that are talking about mental health. So Melissa, maybe some of you had watched the Olympics last summer. She medaled for Canada, but she talks about how the mental part makes the biggest difference for her. It's about how you're going to be able to bounce back. So that idea of resilience. And then the other guy also played in the Olympics. We weren't able to quite medal, but still had a good outing. Riley Barnes, managing your mental health and wellness is super important. It's a direct connection with the physical health and resistance to injury. So he often talks about a lot of those habits that you build and how you approach it and think about your health in general, how it has a huge impact, sure, on your game, but also outside of the game, how fast you're able to respond, bounce back, and really be consistent with your approach. When we get to those higher levels, a lot of the time, the biggest difference is that consistency, that resilience, that ability to bounce back quickly after an error. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is mental health. Um, Basically, right, we have this big belief that if you become successful, that everything's just going to go well, including your health. You'll just be happy when you get everything you ever want. So maybe you're thinking all I need is to get recruited, or all I need is to have some good stats. All I need to do is win this big match or make this team, whatever along that way, and then I'll be happy. Um, those things are can be very good and can be stuff that we enjoy and strive to achieve. But you're kind of putting the cart in front of the buggy there, where when you're waiting until you have success to be happy, content, or mentally stable, you're going to get into some issues. We've seen plenty of examples for those who just are in it for the chase to play the next level, keep going, keep going. A lot of former players essentially end up getting burnt out, or once they've achieved their goals, they don't really know what to do next. Um, or once they're done playing, how that can be put into their life. And so a lot of that has to do with your mental health, how you go about practice, right? How you think about these different skills. Are you building these skills, right? Or is it just something that happens by fluke? Um, it's a lot of times how you perceive those things. What you're doing to take care of your brain is a really important question we want you to think about tonight, and for the next little bit. Uh, Basically, your primary job of the brain is to focus, attend, learn, remain alert. It's there to help you get back into the zone. Oftentimes, one of the biggest concerns as far as what you're doing for your brain is things off the court. So can you limit distractions? Are you able to look after your health? So that way, when you call upon your brain, it's able to perform at the highest level. You're able to bring your A game in those most important moments. That's all set up through great mental health habits and different ways to approach the game. For those that are probably most of you are starting to drive, it's that idea where if you're distracted while driving, you're over 10 times more likely to get into an accident. Same idea when you're thinking about mental performance on the court. If you're distracted by something else or something's going on in your life, you're just not able to process as fast. And as you all probably know, this game is played in milliseconds, not even seconds, right? If you just mill 1 millisecond that platform out a little bit faster, or you just get to that ball 1 inch higher, all of a sudden there's completely different angles, how you're approaching, and the game just really opens up. So that mental health is going to be there to help you with those mental performances. They help set you up for success. Some of the biggest barriers, biggest things that when Cody was talking about that low-hanging fruit, is oftentimes sleep, stress, dehydration. When it comes to sleep, like 2 consecutive nights of poor sleep, reaction times have been shown to be much, much slower, and your cognitive abilities are off. So basically, how you think about the game, not just defensively, you're trying to dig a ball, that reaction time's a little bit slower, but also your ability to problem solve. Oftentimes, we talk about volleyball as air management or problem solving. And so if you're not sleeping, you're dehydrated, doing those parts prior to performance, you're already behind the 8 ball and you're just not setting yourself up for the success that you might want, right? Very easy to say you really want to succeed at something um, in that moment, but are you attending to those things ahead of time? Very similar to like an exam. It's you might really want to do well in this class, but if you're not doing the work, if you're not studying and doing that part, then you're just really losing control of what that success might look like. I know sometimes when you're thinking short term, it can be difficult. For example, you might think I've had a bad sleep before and I did just fine, or I did well in that tournament, something along that line. But not taking care of your mental health increases the risk of things going sideways. And over a long period of time, is just stacks and stacks and stacks. The nice part though is with you all, a lot of the times there's a lot of change going on as you're transitioning into high school or out of high school and things along that line. Um, it's a great time for you to learn new patterns or to start to think about that. Oftentimes being mindful and reflecting on that stuff is the first step. You can identify it. And so that after that, you can make that change. So these are different foundational pieces when we're talking about mental health, right? So when you're in a team, you're going to have different teamwork aspects that are affected, how you achieve those goals, setting, achieving them, pushing your limits is a huge part about mental health and mental performance. At the end of the day, sport is meant to challenge you and push you and try to make you better. That's where a lot of the learning goes is when you're outside of your comfort zone, and really pushing your limits on what your body and mind can really do. In order to push those limits safely, you need to attend to those mental health parts, right? It's one thing to jump 800 times in a club tournament. If you're used to that part and you've trained that part and you've been pushing those limits, it's another if you're just coming right off the couch and first time out there, you're jumping and doing all of that. So just a different way to kind of think about your mental health is that foundation to help you perform on the court, but also in pretty much all aspects of your life. Some things that can really impact that is performance stress, right? So how we view our performance, risk of injury, right? If you're not sleeping well, dehydrated, chance of injury goes up. So you might really want that extra rep then, but if your body and mind aren't ready for it, it's kind of a one step forward, two steps back scenario. So we often talk about what's normal versus what's clinical. So mental health is very broad. And so oftentimes when we talk about mental health with a lot of young athletes, you start thinking, well, I get really upset when I make an error, or maybe I'm yelling, or I'm very anxious before a big game, crossover game. I'm worried about the outcome. That's all really just normal mood states. So that's not necessarily a huge concern for your mental health. When we would start to be a little bit more concerned is when you have those persistent feelings lasting more than 2 weeks. It's kind of tying into other things, right? So um, that idea when you're going home, are you upset still? Are you taking it out on parents, siblings, things along that line? When we're crossing those boundaries, when it's affecting your sleep, maybe you're not eating, things along those lines. Those are a little more serious and bigger warning flags, right? When it comes to those parts, please, please, please reach out to either us, your coaches, the club in general. People, we're there to help. And so when you start to see those things, if you have questions, just know you're not alone and that we're more than happy to help you with whatever is kind of bothering you in those moments. So reminder, mental health, right, is that focus on your well-being overall. It's not just how I'm thinking, right? But it's how your health and your body are responding. You're going to face unique circumstances that challenge your mental health. It's not average for your normal person to go out there and train 2 hours a day, plus workout, plus whatever else in between, and try to manage your social life and your homework and all of that all at the same time, maybe a part-time job. So you really are pushing your body and challenging it in a lot of different ways. And we're here to help you through some of those mental struggles that not everyone would experience. Understanding how your brain works is huge. And seeking support when you're feeling weighed down is just going to be a great relief for everyone. So when we're now transitioning into a little bit more of the mental performance discussion, so that mental health, once again, that's your foundation. Performance is all based on that solid foundation. So if you take away anything from that first part, just realize mental health is the foundational piece for your mental performance. That being said, the great one said it pretty well. 90% of hockey is mental and the other half is physical, right? So if you have any math people in there, that's probably adding up to a lot more than 100%. But at the end of the day, our sport is very much the same way. So in volleyball, oftentimes it's not a matter of if you're going to make an error, it's a matter of when. How do you respond, right? If you can respond faster and correct that error and stay consistent, you're going to have such a huge advantage against players your age, players at the next level, all of that good stuff. So once again, it's just such a cool experience for you all if you put the time and effort into it. Like I said, I played on the very first Ravens men's team. We barely scrapped together 10 guys, let alone thinking about physical performance and thinking about mental performance. Just by attending this, you're already so much further ahead than where I was in playing club. So it's just starting to think this and use it to your advantage, right? How do you get that 1% better? How do you get that little bit of edge against your competition? So over the next little bit, we're going to talk about the first approach. It's a different type of framework. But for tonight, because we don't want to go too informational heavy, we're just going to really talk about focus. So once again, we're going to focus on focus. So in order to focus, kind of what we do to fuel our brain becomes really important. Brain functioning is strongly correlated with performance, right? So sometimes you wake up, maybe you're a little groggy, right? So How do you get that edge when you have your first quarterfinal match, 8 a.m., 7 a.m. Coach says you have to be there doing those things, right? Maybe they're asking you to run a set of lines or something along that, and you're like, whew, this is brutal. Like, why are they making me do this? Like, I just got out of bed. Oftentimes, it's to trigger your brain to try to get you refocused, to get it firing and become a little bit more awake. A lot of the primary building blocks around that, brain function and performance, sleep, right? So one of your superpowers that you can start to work on is being able to sleep in hotel rooms, right? When you're traveling, doing that part makes a huge difference. Hydration, nutrition, managing distraction often comes from the device most likely beside you or in your pocket right now. How do you control that part and just being a little bit aware about it, as well as calming your mind if you're very anxious. So keep talking about focusing and focusing on focusing. What does it actually mean to be focused? What helps? What doesn't? What we're really talking about is being able to regulate our breathing, getting that oxygen in and out, some mindfulness, and managing distraction in a busy world. So when we're talking about managing distraction, this is once again some of that low-hanging fruit. So we want to focus in on singular tasks versus multitasking, right? It'd be probably very difficult to set a ball while you send a snap to somebody. You're just going to make it a lot more difficult. Your brain's pulled in different directions, right? And so that's the cool part about our team sport is you all kind of having a singular focus. How do you, as a member of the team, help add to that focus? Be it on the bench, on the floor. Maybe you're calling out how many blockers, what shots open, things along that line. Helping in that moment and being present in it just makes such a huge performance advantage for teams that can really master that. Your personal rating of accomplishment, we all view it differently, right? Some of you might be playing just a sport just because, hey, it's a great way to kill some evening, hang out with some friends, things along that line. But really understanding what drives you to put aside that time and to do that part is huge. It's really hard to resist the urge multitasking. A lot of times that's why high schools have gone to blocking phones and things that way, is because there's just this big dopamine hit, this happiness that happens when you're scrolling mindlessly, doing that part. Instant gratification. What we really want to focus in on is how do you have that long-term happiness, that dopamine over time, right? So rather than just pulling out your phone to get that dopamine hit? Can you improve your serving, right? Like it's not going to be right now that instant gratification, but maybe last year you had a serve that was consistent, you were making it quite a bit. Maybe you started jump floating or jump spinning, but can you now make that into a little bit of a weapon, right? So really focusing in from the end line when you're going into that serve, how do you make it so your team is going to get advantage from your serve, not just you're giving the other team the ball. So those big steps take a lot of focus and time in order to do. It's not just about reps, it's about being consistent with your reps and really intentional. Not only do those reps help with the actual task, but it's also going to build confidence. That confidence comes from being prepared, ultimately, right? Being mindful, hitting that game serve 1,000 times in practice is going to give you the confidence to do it in those big moments in a match. Really, what is confidence? It's not based upon feeling, right? Thought patterns based on positive self-statements. It's body language, dealing with failure, right? So the last three things are really important in our sport. Like I said, it's not a matter of if you're going to make an error in the game, right? It's a matter of when. But does that mean you're going to go spiral for a couple points? Or are you able to come back and provide something for the team and help refocus back to where you need to be? I often talk about it as the double error. So when you make an error, right, you hit a ball out of bounds, you double on a set, or you miss a serve, right, shank a pass, you've made an error. These things happen. But what happens after that is really important. Are you able to come back, right, refocus, and so now you can play that next point, right? Or are you making the double error where heads down, you're walking away, you're upset, and now your whole team has that singular focus of making you feel better. So they have to put time, energy, rather than thinking about what's coming next. They're worried about bringing you back and being part of that team. It's part of the responsibility of being a team. Um, it's difficult that way when you make an error. Sometimes you have to think about the greater good, but sometimes we'll talk about it in a little bit. It's one of the coolest parts about being part of a team is it can get you out of your head when you are in some of those ruts. And so that's a little bit what we're talking about with changing your mindset against failure, right? So acknowledge negative emotions. That's fine, right? You can be genuine. I'm not saying you hit a ball out of bounds. We expect you to come down smiling and super happy about it, right? But you need to find a way to get out of that negative and into the next one so your teammates know you're able to attack the next one or that you're still present. Um, One of the ones that I like to talk about is for me, I would be very upset with myself whenever I made an error, or whenever I wasn't putting my best performance forward. And my teammates would often pick me up through a joke. So some people, if they make an error, you crack a joke, it's not going to go super well. Maybe they're out of it, or there's going to be more upset. But for me, that was one that I often relied upon. Um, Lucky for me, I played with a lot of funny people, and we're on a call with one of them. He was always there to kind of crack a joke, make you smile, and it would help me move on to the next one. So it's not all in your head in a team sport, right? Sometimes it's knowing your teammates, doing that part. Those just like little differences that make a huge difference in the game, right? Turn that 25-23 loss to a 25-23 win. So in summary, right, mental health and wellness go hand in hand. Focus is managing distractions and building your brain's capacity to focus. Uh, One of the ways you could think about it, right, is at your guys' age, when I was in a class, I was maybe able to listen to an instructor or teacher for 10 minutes. And so each week I try to just push that 1 minute further. Okay, next week I'm going to listen for 11 minutes, have a break, come back, be intentional with that. Maybe you're feeling that right now, right? So been talking for about 30 minutes, and so it's that one where maybe some of you are drifting, right? It's totally okay. Let's just acknowledge where you're at with your focus. Are you able to bring it back? And the more you practice that, and the more mindful you are of it, the easier it becomes, the faster it can happen, and the more advantage you and your team will have. Resilience is building confidence, right? So you make an error, can I refocus and can I perform the next one? The more often you do it, the more confidence you'll have to do it. Understanding the importance of risk taking, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future and pushing back those negative thoughts. Building those long-term dopamine moments makes a huge difference and helps you end up becoming elite. Cody, you want to hit them with the homework and do that side?
Yeah, so I know that was pretty quick, tying a lot of stuff together, but from that, you guys are in a good place. Practice should be rolling pretty good here pretty soon. So when you're in those moments, you're making errors. We really want you to go and practice those components of doing the reframe. You miss a serve, you shank a pass, you flume one out the back, you fire one against the back wall. I mean, we all do it and we've all done it. And you'll all continue to do it. But what is your personal process for acknowledging what happened? And like Greg said, it's important to be genuine with what happened. You don't need to come down and be, hey, I'm super stoked that I blasted that one halfway down the net. But say, hey, realistically, that was my bad. I messed up. that's okay. I can move on from that. And then what's your personal mantra in those situations? We all had different things that you kind of anchor yourself to and then use it as a refocus point. Um, Greg's, for example, is he'd take that joke, wipe his shoes, wipe his socks, and then he'd be ready to be refocused again and then back in the zone. Mine was just thinking, hey, all I have to do is focus on my fundamentals, say to myself, who am I? I'm a champion, and then go from there, right? Like give yourselves those core anchoring statements that you think resonate with yourself. Put it on tape, put it on your water bottle. I used to put little things on my sneakers, on my toes. So if I was hanging my head, that's exactly what I'd see. So you're not putting that back on your team. You're seeing it quick, you're catching it, and then you're getting back in the zone. So practice those reframe moments whenever it happens. And as Greg said before, volleyball especially is a game of errors. You're you're fighting to make the other team make errors and then limit your own errors. If you can stop every error one to one in a row, you're almost going to win every single game you ever play. Like no team's going to lose when you make one error at a time. You'll win every game, you go straight to nationals and you win there too. So limiting those errors are the number one way to come out on top and be a champion. So that's just one thing we want you to try and start building that throughout the year. And then throughout and as we go, we'll give you more breathing techniques to help you refocus. We'll give you more info on that sleep hygiene and how to do it. But that's another good one to start right now. Put your phones down earlier before bed, especially when you're about to perform the next day. Do the stuff you need to do to get that good night's sleep. Because, as Greg said too, the number one and two things for your brain health and brain performance that are super easy to do is sleep well, eat, and hydrate well. Like, and you don't really have to do anything different. There's almost no effort in it. Pretty easy to just sleep. If you have sleep issues, there's a lot of different things to go through, and we'll talk about that later on in the year. So, that's the homework is practice that reframe. And then a little bit later here, we're going to send out a link into our assessment program for you guys. It'll just ask you a series of questions. It's all confidential. It stays with you. It doesn't go to your coaches. It doesn't go to your team. It doesn't go anywhere. And then we take the data in aggregate to help build performance profiles for each team. And then independently and individually, it'll give you some resources on areas that you might want to do and get development in. So focus, confidence, resilience, self-awareness, hydration, sleep, whatever. There's a whole bunch in there, and it'll help you understand what the components of mental performance are, and then what areas you can be working on. So it'll help you individually, and then it'll help your whole team. So coaches or managers or whoever it is, we can help them say, hey, your whole team struggles with X. Let's go out and talk to your team by themselves about this one topic and really get them on the right track before this tournament. So that'll get sent out to you guys here within the next week or so. And if you want to run through that, we'll use a bunch of that data to build some pretty sweet performance plans for you. But beyond that, I think that's what we'll cover right now. And if anyone has any questions, fire it off in the chat. We're also always available when this gets sent out by the president. We'll put our contact info in there too, so you guys can send an email to me or Greg, and we can answer any questions privately. Coaches, parents, athletes, whoever it is, let us know. Health, wellness, performance. We'll help guide you with all of it. So. Greg, do you want to add anything to that before we go for questions, if there are any?
Yeah, it's just once again, just one step at a time. So there was quite a few different pieces, and maybe some of it resonates with you, some of it doesn't at this moment. That's okay. Nice part about recordings, they're always there if you want to go back and review. But just remember, one thing at a time is going to help build that performance and create the club season that you would like.
Yeah, and maybe in some of you, it's probably a lot of it's just old news. Maybe you've heard it from someone or somewhere, or you've gone through it. And some of you, it might be all new stuff. So this is just a bit of our intro base layer, and then it's all up and more performance based from here. So if anyone has any questions, put them in there.